Should you learn how to code since AI can already code for you? So to answer this question, let us start by talking about what a developer does on a regular. So a developer writes code, a developer reads code, and knowing how to read and understand code is very important. A developer understands requirements and translates them into solutions. So now that we have talked about what a developer does, let's talk about what AI is good at when it comes to programming. So AI writes code when it's asked to, AI can explain specific things, and AI cannot act on its own, at least as of now. So given what a developer does and what AI does, we see that the coding part is getting less prevalent for developers, and they can just use AI for a lot of things when it comes to coding. But the main thing to take note of is that the developer will use AI to write code, but still has to know how to read code and understand it. The developer still needs to understand requirements and may use AI to translate them. And finally, a developer still needs to debug code. Because at the current state of AI, it's quite good at writing code, but quite bad at debugging code. You realize that a lot of times if you're using any AI tool, sometimes rather than even debugging a code, you better try to rewrite it because AI is quite bad at debugging code. So with all this in mind, yes, learning how to code is still very essential for a developer because knowing how to think from first principles is required to even understand how to solve a problem. So let me just give you a quick example from personal experience. So let's take the case of a social media application, and I've already tried to build a social media application and come across the problems I will list right here. So building a social media app is a very challenging computer science problem. If you ask AI to build a social media app, it will certainly be able to do so, but it will build a very basic version of a social media application. So basically a version that you cannot really deploy into a very serious application or into a scalable application. So by itself, it's not going to figure out how to build a super scalable architecture, especially based on the resources you have as a developer or as a team. This is when thinking from first principles come into play. So the questions you ask yourself as a developer is, how do I create a personalized feed for each user? How do I optimize my database so constructing a feed fanout only happens when a user opens the app? Should it be done on the server side even before the user opens the app, or should it be done on the client side by basically filtering certain posts based on certain conditions, like maybe the post ranks, if the user is following another user or not? So all these questions, AI basically won't figure it out. Those are system design questions, and it's your job as a developer to check your project requirements and needs. Figure out what solution works best for you, whether you need to build a scalable architecture or you can get away with building something that is not scalable with the resources you have at hand. All those questions, all those constraints are things you need to take note of as a developer and actually try to use it before building